YouTube, good evening. What the pile of hang on, Dragon Ogre Shaggoth dung is going on? Is he dung, or would it just be crap? HeirofCarthage here. Sorry, trying to throw a little twist on the beginning there. So yes, I do have Kolek Suneater. Before we get things started, again, just let me thank MSI for helping to sponsor the build that I'm recording this on. And then also, if you see the HeirofCarthage logo down in the bottom right and you like what you see in the video, please make sure to click there and subscribe. It helps me out a ton. Let's move on into the battle. So, yeah, I've got Kolek Suneater, obviously playing as Chaos right now. So I've got 4 units of Chaos Warriors with great weapons. I don't even know if these guys are any good. I've never really used them. And then I've got 2 units of Chaos with Halberds, one of those on each flank in case I'm facing good Empire Cavalry. I've got 2 units of Chaos Knights with Lances, which honestly is probably pretty risky versus the Empire because they don't tend to trade real cost effectively with Demigryphs. But with the Chaos Warriors with Halberds around, I'm hoping to do okay. The main killing power of my army is most definitely Kolek Suneater. This guy can get a horrendous number of kills if he's kept safe and used properly. I mean, he can hold his own. You don't have to keep him super safe, but I'm just saying. Out on the flanks, on each flank, I've got a unit of Chaos Warhounds. This one's a Poison Warhound. And let's follow up on it. So yeah, the Warhound is just out here getting to the flank. And I kind of wanted to discuss a topic here. Ever since Total War has been a thing, there has been this mindset with a lot of players, probably because it works on campaign, that if you just sit back with multiple artillery units, you can fight a defensive position and the artillery will damage your opponent so badly that they won't be able to defeat you. And this mindset has never really been true in a Total War game, even in like Napoleon Total War. Now, artillery is about as good as it can get in this game. It's pretty accurate, it fires relatively quick, it does have limited ammo, but I mean it's still like I said, artillery is about as good as it can get. My opponent has 2 great cannons and a Hellstorm rocket battery. His infantry is 4 great swords, a couple halberds, and he's got Karl Franz on foot here because he spent most of his money extra on artillery. He did bring a Amber Wizard so that he could spawn a Manticore, which you can see is out chasing some units. So the rockets are firing. Let's go watch the rockets. Do they cause a lot of damage? They can be good versus infantry, but my infantry is kind of spread out into pockets. So the rockets are going to be denied a grouped up target where they can really do damage. So they'll get a stray hit here or there, but they won't cause a ton of damage. His cannons are a lot more scary to me. They're much more accurate, and they're hitting my men and they're causing a lot of damage. So his Manticore, like I said, just kind of being used, and I'm basically, I've gone ahead and thrown my Chaos Warhounds in because this cannon was getting way too much damage done. I knew my guys were going to die, but I had to buy myself at least a few seconds. So that's what I did. Looks like the Amber Wizard's Flock of Doom is what he's used on my guys. So yeah, I mean, you can see that my Chaos Warriors with great weapons are taking significant damage, but there's always a price to pay. If you bring this many handgunners and you bring this many artillery, you're going to have a weakness somewhere. My opponent's infantry is actually rather decent with 4 great swords and a couple of halberds. He's going to do pretty well against heavily armored units from Chaos. But where he's not going to do well is in the cavalry department. And my opponent has skimped there by pouring everything he has into infantry and artillery. So at this point, all I have to do is just kind of run distractions. So you can see Kolek is taking the wrath of all this fire, but it's not going to continue for long. My Chaos Knights over here take out the cannon. Kolek himself comes in to completely silence the handgunners. And now the handgunners can't really run away either because I have a unit of Chaos Knights. Well, I had a unit of Chaos Knights somewhere back here. Where'd they get to? Chaos Knight. Okay, yeah, they're still back here. I had the Chaos Knights watching for retreating handgunners so I can pick them off. And once Kolek gets in this fight, he's going to cause a substantial amount of damage. My Chaos Warriors with great weapons, they'll do okay. They're few in number than the Great Swords, but they have some stats better. But Great Swords are probably a more cost-effective unit in general. Let's check out the Chaos Knights. So again, because my opponent didn't bring any answer to these, they're able to roam the back lines at will. I can destroy his Hellstorm rocket battery, so a large spin there taken off the battlefield, and now his handgunners are trapped and will be destroyed. He sends his Manticore in, but a Manticore is actually really not well suited to be fighting cavalry with an anti-large bonus. Actually, my guys just have anti-infantry, so, but whatever. Probably still not the best unit for the Manticore to be taking on. Let me locate my other units. My other Chaos Knight came out here to fight Karl Franz and was actually doing very well until the Great Cannon over here was able to open fire on it, because Karl Franz is getting knocked around, but the cannon has a bonus versus large. More of the Doom Flock or whatever coming from the Amber Wizard. Kolek does have the lightning spell, and I did already use it once on some handgunners, and it helped get rid of them relatively quick. And you can see these blobs over here really favor my Chaos Warriors in the sense that I can keep many of his units stuck. And his handgunners, I can't tell, I think that they are on, they're trying to be retreated. Their unit is actually regrouped back there. And you can see this handgunner regroups, but my Chaos Knight's going to be able to write it down, and Kolek now gets to turn around and hit this big blob of infantry in the back. And this is the kind of place where Kolek is just going to rack up an absurd amount of kills. So you can see him doing just that. Here comes another spell. Looks like Doom Flock again, so he's just using a lot of direct damage spells here. And Doom Flock really isn't all that great, to be honest. Yeah, Kolek's pounding away out here. I do use his lightning spell over here in a minute, and it works out pretty well. Look at the health here. So 57 and 90. Let's watch what happens. There's the lightning spell right on the engaged spearman. And yeah, they dropped down to 38 out of 90. So that was actually a pretty good effect. I don't know how, like, do Empire Halberdiers beat Chaos Warriors with halberds? Because my guys were just, they were getting jacked up over here. Way worse than they should. Maybe they had to fight something else first. But yeah, the Empire army just was not flexible enough. And that's really the strength of the Empire, is flexibility. They can field things that Chaos have a difficult time dealing with. And the Empire really didn't field those well enough here. I thought I was going to do a rear charge, but my guys managed to charge through, and between them and Kolek, we're absolutely crushing the great swords right here. The Empire player did have handgunners and cannons, all a potential counter to Kolek, but he wasn't really pressuring Kolek much early on. And again, because of his lack of cavalry, I can harass his cannons fairly well, and I'm able to get Kolek into combat. So again, I think the lesson here is that you've always got to keep with the Empire in mind who your opponent is. The Chaos are fairly limited in what they can do, whereas, like I said, the Empire is very, very capable in terms of having multiple strategies. Here comes the Star Crusher and my Chaos Knights here. We're going to pin up the remaining Empire units and destroy them in a most gruesome fashion. But yeah, so not since the beginning of Total War and not now is it a good idea to sit back with artillery. You can build armies where artillery is useful. And a lot of times, the Empire and the Dwarfs, the Greenskins with their Doom Divers, a lot of factions in this game can build a useful army that's good in multiplayer with an artillery unit. But too heavy a reliance on it is going to hurt you. This cannon probably paid for itself. These did not, and that's 1,500 in spin that could have been used on some cavalry to help ward off my Chaos Knights, who absolutely waylaid a ton of enemy units here. 130 kills with 2 chevrons. This one got 50 kills with a single chevron because it basically killed Karl Franz. Kolek Suneater was able to roam at will despite him having the artillery. And I mean, my Chaos Warriors, considering their few numbers and how much cannon fire they took, did pretty well. The Warhounds were expendable in the first place, though they are a pretty expensive expendable unit. So yeah, what amount of artillery and what kind of artillery is right? So maybe let's just go talk about some of the artillery, and hopefully this will be useful for those of you who maybe are used to playing a lot of campaign, but you want to get into multiplayer, or maybe you just want to learn what artillery is generally useful for. And let's take a look at the Empire. Since the Empire was the faction that my opponent picked, the Empire has a number of very useful artillery units. The steam tank is like a mobile artillery that can also melee. What is the steam tank good against? It's extremely good against infantry. And I mean, unless you have some really elite infantry with some really good armor piercing, the steam tank is good against infantry. It can do a lot of damage versus lords, and this is at close range. At long range, it's like a cannon, a single cannon, so it's good against cavalry and other large targets, and it can harass an enemy force from quite a long distance. It's got 405 range. The Luminarch of Hysh, again, a very powerful missile unit here that was best used for character sniping, but now that there's so many healing potions out there, you'll probably see the Luminarch of Hysh sitting on the sidelines mostly in multiplayer and probably being saved for campaign. Does it do a lot of damage? Absolutely, but it's got a low rate of fire. It doesn't have a lot of ammunition, and like I said, with healing potions out there, it could be a questionable pick. Hellblaster Volley Gun. Probably not going to see this one used a whole lot by the Empire. It's kind of a mid-range artillery unit. It does armor-piercing damage, but the price of it is pretty forbidding. This is more of a campaign piece that you could use against Chaos. It does great damage against armor, or any large targets that are armored, so that would be the usefulness of it. Hellstorm rocket batteries are good against blobs of enemies. They are very expensive. The AI is very prone to blobbing, so the Hellstorm rocket battery is going to best be used against blobs. If you can funnel an enemy into a certain area, then the Hellstorm rocket battery will be useful. The reason why it's not otherwise is this poor accuracy. The missile damage is really quite good. It does quite a lot of missile damage. Not a lot of it's armor piercing, but it's really quite good against blobs. The Great Cannon is going to be good against large. Use this against cavalry units in particular. It can also help to kill monsters, but it's actually very good against cavalry, and it does have some of the longest range for artillery in this game. The mortar, it's really more of a... I mean, you can use this. It's fairly inaccurate, but it does have a decent rate of fire. It can do some decent damage. I haven't seen this one used to great effect a lot. Its range is kind of so-so. Again, it's going to be better against infantry blobs. So, again, let's just recap. Infantry blobs for the mortar, cavalry for the cannons, infantry blobs for the rocket battery, high armor targets if you want to use the Hellblaster Volley Gun, lords or heroes are the best targets for the Luminarch, and the steam tank is kind of a combo artillery slash monster. It's not really a monster, but that's kind of what it becomes. So that's the artillery for the Empire. All of these units can be useful in campaign because the AI is too dumb to counter them. Online, I would only say that you're probably ever going to see the steam tank and the cannon be the most useful. The rest are probably going to be pretty questionable. Occasionally, you might see a good use of the Luminarch of Hysh, but it's going to be rare, especially, like I said, because of the healing potions. Now, let's take a look at the Dwarves. They also have a lot of artillery. What kind of artillery they have? So the Grudge Thrower is a great cheap artillery that does a decent amount of armor-piercing damage. Again, this is good at long range versus high value, high armor targets. Mostly good in early campaign because you can replace it with better stuff in late campaign. In online battles, it could give you a lot of range for a relatively low price as the Dwarfs. Not going to see this a ton in online battles. Gyrocopters, not a bad unit. Again, campaign, pretty useful unit. They don't do good versus armor. So this particular variety is going to be pretty underused because it can't really damage anything other than lightly armored infantry. The bombs on it are quite good, but the damage from the gun is not that impressive. The cannon is similar to the Empire cannon with slightly less range. Great unit against cavalry. This is one of the Dwarf's best weapons against cavalry, and this absolutely can be used to good effect in a multiplayer match if you can gun down enemy cavalry with it. Before you try this, though, take note of the map. Make sure that you're on a map that's got a good wide open firing plane. If not, this cannon may not be the best option. Gyrocopters with brimstone guns are actually quite good because, again, they're one of the few tools that the Dwarves have that have anti-large. The challenge is that factions like the Empire can destroy these guys in the air pretty easily, and anybody who's got good skirmishers, skirmishers are the bane of these gyrocopters. But otherwise, they are one of the few ways that Dwarves can deal with cavalry, and all of them, of course, come with a couple of gyrocopter bombs, which have been buffed, and they are really quite good versus blobs of infantry. The organ gun is similar to the Hellblaster Volley Gun, except it's much more sensibly priced. Use it against high armor, high value targets. The gyro bomber, because the bombs have been buffed, I guess it's possible this thing might be worth it, but you have to remember that like a standard gyrocopter like this comes with 2 bomb volleys, but there's 3 gyrocopter models, so that's a total of 6 bombs for 800, or you can get 11 bombs for 1150. Yeah, I mean, you get the better gun on this thing too. The gun on the gyro bomber, it does say armor-piercing missiles, so that's not bad. I mean, if we look at the missile damage, it's not bad, but there's only one gyro bomber, and it's pretty expensive. Typically, you're going to see people go with the gyrocopter with the brimstone gun. In campaign, though, again, gyro bombers can be useful at breaking up big infantry blobs. The flame cannon has also been modified in the most recent patch, and it is actually extremely good versus infantry of just about any sort, and it can fire up and over a line and land shots even while you're engaged. The challenge with this weapon in multiplayer is that the enemy is almost never going to let you have enough time to use it. So this thing's probably going to be extremely useful in campaign, and occasionally useful in multiplayer. Its range is so short that enemy artillery or enemy cavalry are going to be able to close the distance significantly, and it's going to get hard for you to protect this against another player who knows what they're doing. Let's take a look at other artillery. For the Bretonnians, there's only one option, Trebuchet. It's similar to a grudge thrower in almost every way, so use it for the same things. If we go look at Beastmen, their only artillery is a Cygor. Very, very expensive, but the Cygor does hurl a rock from long range. It can do extreme damage to infantry. The best way to get a hold of these guys is to spawn them using I believe it's Lore of... Is it Lore of Beast? Or Lore of Wild? Arcane Conduit... Yeah, okay, it's the Lore of the Wild. So you can use a Lore of the Wild wizard to spawn one, and that's usually the best way to go. If we switch over to the Vampire Counts, don't have any, and then Warriors of Chaos, again, only have one, which is the Hell Cannon. This gun, I mean, unless it's been recently improved, doesn't do a whole heck of a lot of damage. Hang on, this is interesting. The Hell Cannon transforms the souls of former victims into crackling bolts of energy. So the targets receive a leadership penalty. Interesting. But this is very expensive. There's only one gun per unit, so if it gets destroyed by an enemy artillery unit, that you're done. You paid 1,200 and you can't do anything else with it. It's relatively slow fire time. Yes, it does a horrendous amount of damage if it hits, but it's very underwhelming. So that's kind of the state of artillery. If you want to camp with artillery, it's going to work much better in campaign than it probably ever has in past Total Wars, because the artillery in this game is pretty good. It's just that the way that artillery is priced and the way it's used doesn't lend it to being used massively in multiplayer. Just more as like support units. Like I said, the Dwarfs bringing a cannon to take down cavalry. So hopefully this adds some insight for those who are big-time campaign players and they see what works there, but maybe they want to switch over to multiplayer. Just be aware of things like that. The human is always going to try and counteract you differently than the AI does. So what works against the AI probably won't work against a human, at least not more than once. Hope you all enjoyed this. HeirofCarthage signing out. I will see you back next time.